So this week we're going to make this little character we've called the Nomad. So we've got a little alien that's lost in space and living the nomadic life. The first thing we're going to do is show you some reference material that we've sketched to use for this entire project, and we're going to give you that down below in the links. And then we're going to, video one, we're going to jump straight in and we're going to block out with primitives the whole entire body. And then video two we'll move into doing the sculpt. So here we go, let's dive right in. So the first thing you're going to need if you're going to make a character like this is some reference material. So you can download stuff, but we like to draw our own quite often. So we designed this character as a little alien called the Nomad, which is quite apt as we're using Nomad to sculpt him. We did it in Procreate, very, very simply. It only took about half an hour. And what we wanted to do is design a little alien. We tried a tail, we tried the spikes, we tried all different little combinations to get a design that we liked, and we ended up with the nice clean big eyes, nice smiley face, little bat ears. We prepared the artwork, as you can see. We had the perspective on the left and then just an isometric on the front view there, which is the right one, and then we prepared that with the grid lines on for you to use. So they're down below in the links, so grab those. If you do follow along and you do make anything, make sure you join our Facebook group and post your results. This is for beginners, so let's dive right in. Okay, let's start making our character then. So we've got the default scene in Nomad open. We want to, let's just go up to our material and we'll just change it to this green color and do a paint tool, so at least it's going to be green like the character we've chosen. We need a reference image, so I've got a few loaded in here. So basically the ones that I'm making available to you in the links down below, just put them in your Nomad background folder and then import them in, and you've got them in the background there. You can turn these on and off, and sometimes it's better to have a darker one so it's not quite as intrusive as this one is at the moment, but I'm going to keep it like that to show you. I've got an isometric one over here, just the front, and a perspective one here in the background. You can have another one, you can have a side one, but we're going to do it quite loose and fast because it's the process rather than the finish that I'm after. And you've got a grid on there. You don't need that, but I find it quite useful. So in your settings, you've got your display grid and you can move it up and down. And I've got the color green there just because I quite like that. I sometimes have outline selection on as well, and that helps you, especially if you've got a dark background, which I haven't here, but we will leave that on. So we're just going to make all of the basic shapes for the head and the body quickly. So we're going to go up to our scene, and we've got two spheres in there already apparently, so let's just check why we've got two. There's a default one in there as well, so we'll delete that. So we've got the head. I'm going to copy one and copy it again. That means I've got three spheres in there. So that second one, that will be the chest, so you're going to move that down and then use the scale and just scale it down, and then basically just rough it out like this. So all that would mean is, let's get it roughly the right shape, so scale it down, gizmo, move it across. So the head's got the block about right, the chest would be there, and we're going to put a neck in, and we need one more ball, which we already put in, didn't we, which is here, and that one would be the belly or the abdomen. And we'll just roughly line it up again, and we'll just scale that down until it's roughly the right shape. So already we're in a good place because we've got now the rough outline. Now it's difficult to tell whether you're at the front or the side. So what I always do at this point is just give myself some pointers. So I use the move tool from up here, and I just take this, something like the cheeks, for example, and just pull them into roughly the right sort of, roughly just where it is. And why we do that is if you come to the side now, or this side, you can see that already we know where the front is quite simply because we've got that cheek shape. And while we are there, actually, we'll pull that nose out a little bit, or what's going to be the little button part of his face, and we'll also pull this chest forward a bit. You've got symmetry on, so you should be absolutely fine doing this. You shouldn't do too much damage. and the belly will pull that at the back a bit, so it's protruding, and he's got a bit of an arch around his back, up from the head. There's kind of an arch coming from the head to the shoulders down over the back there. So that's enough, really. That's got us into a good place already. You're in perspective mode here, so just be aware you can go between orthographic and perspective like this. You find it in the camera menu, and the reason we do that is sometimes we want to go fully orthographic, which is flat, no perspective, and do snap, and that's completely flat. So that would replicate this image here on the right. If you're in perspective, it's this image here on the left. So just remember that. And I'm going to say switch between perspective and orthographic as I need to, and you'll see me doing that quite a lot during the session. So I'm just going to mark where a few things are. So I'll just use let's use the clay brush. Doesn't really matter. All I'm doing is just working out where I want a few things. I want some eyes there, and in fact what we will do is we'll hold sub down here on the right, and that means we'll be carving in. So we want some eyes there, and with a smaller brush we want to say I know roughly where my mouth's going to be. So sub again, and we'll just say it's going to be about there. We can build it back up if we've lost any volume. That means if volume in this context means the amount of bulkiness of the geometry or the flesh of the creature. It doesn't mean volume as in sound. So volume means shape for anyone that's new to this kind of thing. Now I'm using a smooth tool there, which is here on the right, and I'm just holding it with my finger, and then just painting on the screen, and it does the opposite effect of what the brush is doing there. So we're on the clay brush, hold it down, and we get this smooth effect. So that's given us a little bit more of life into that head. What I do need to do, I just noticed already, we're kind of going off the plan a little bit there. So I just want to pull it, keep tweaking it, and look at it from the side to make sure I've not made any mistakes there. Pull these cheeks back. Always remember a face is round like this. Never do a flat face, so always have it coming out and like a cylinder from the top. And that'll generally work well for most of your designs. Okay, so we've got basically we've got the head, the body, and the chest there. So what we're going to do now is we're only going to work on this right hand side here. We're going to build a leg, and we're going to build an arm quickly with shapes. So we need a cylinder. So we're going to go back out here, and we'll add in just a cylinder. It will pop in at an odd size, so don't worry about that. So I think we've got the colour selected, so we can flood fill it. Now notice we can't flood fill it at the moment. That's because this is what's called a parametric object, and we can change the parameters of this, but we don't want to. So hit validate down here, and that means we can now amend it and sculpt on it and paint on it. Back up to the colour and just fill it. We're going to scale that down with scale. We're going to rotate it around, so you can either just rotate or gizmo, whichever suits. And we're going to scale that up. So we can this is going to be, as you can probably tell, this is going to be the arm, or the start of the arm. We're keeping this character quite basic for a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons is I want to rig it and animate it, to show you that we can use Nomad sculpts to go into more of a production environment. So that's why it's as simple as it is, or one of the reasons I've kept it simple. We'll do future videos for that as well. So duplicate that part, and then we can just scale that up and also scale it back this way. That's given us a bulky arm. Use the move tool just to get a little bit more of how it needs to look when it's finished. I always put a slight bend backwards in the arm like this. So this would be my elbow at the back here, and it just helps sometimes. It's I suppose I don't know how much it helps anymore, but I always like to, from a long time of modelling and modelling with riggers, I always like to put a suggested bend of a limb. So I don't know whether that still applies, but there's no harm for you to do it. So if you think about your arm out of the side, it would bend a little bit like that. The hand, we're just going to put a cube on there for now because we want one of everything. So we're going to go back up again. We're going to go, again, don't worry about naming these at the moment. We're just throwing in the shapes. So I'm going to throw in a box. I'm going to validate down here at the bottom. We're going to paint it, and then we're going to scale it. So very simple process that we're going to use over and over again until we've got one of everything. We're going to move it to where we want it. Oops. Move it to where we want it. And that's all I need for our hand for now. I'm going to put some fingers on that in a minute, obviously, but that will do for now. Okay, so we've got one of everything there, and we just need now 3 pieces now for the leg. So we need a cylinder. So we could just take this one and duplicate that. And in fact, we don't need 3 pieces because with a leg, it's very, very simple just to take it this way, turn it around, and just roughly lining it up with our model, our reference, sorry. Bring it roughly there, use the move tool, and we'll change that completely once we start to sculpt. But it's giving us something to sculpt on, which is the important thing. So from the side, what should it look like? Well, it's a knee, isn't it? So it needs to bend forward like so. But we've got our reference to think about, so turn it slightly round. So that is roughly where I want it. Maybe just a little bit more out. Now, because you're working from a 2D reference, be ready to vary your design from that reference. Don't be thinking that you have to stick to it completely or you won't get a good design. It could end up completely looking really, really odd. And duplicate that cube. Any of this starts becoming a problem for you, just slow down and go back to the part of the video that that you're struggling with, and just see. Oh, I've duplicated the wrong thing there. Duplicated the head instead of what I wanted. So the cube. This is for the toes, by the way. So duplicate that, bring it down, bring it along. And I'll actually do this from underneath now. So scale it out that way and rotate it around. Just use rotate here now. Let's have a look at it from the top. Use the gizmo. And then how does that fit? Pretty good, pretty good. And then once we merge all this together, we can see that we can build that into the toes and the fingers, etc. So almost there. I just need a couple more things before we start merging it all together. We won't merge the whole thing together. We'll probably keep the head and the body separate for the duration of the sculpting. But what I do know I need is a neck, and I might as well go back and start from scratch with that. So we'll just bring in a cylinder for that one. So cylinder, validate, remember the process, paint tool, scale. Very simple. You'll get that down in no time at all. So move it around. Should be in the center anyway. And there's your neck. Okay. So that's quite happy with that. Now we do need an ear. So again, I'll duplicate what we've got. To save us calling stuff in. We'll scale it up. We'll actually go on the side. Now watch this. We're going to scale it this way so we've got a big flat cylinder now. Move it into place. Rotate it around, and there you go. So I'm basically, this process is a very well established one. Lots of artists, lots of ZBrush artists would teach you this kind of working with, blocking out a character like this. Obviously, there's not so many that are doing it on an iPad now, but it's exactly the same as I would do it in ZBrush. It's the same as how I would do it in Maya, with a few caveats, because I would have more references in Maya or Cinema 4D. But it's for a sculptural program like ZBrush, this is pretty much how I would work. Let's just line it up. Now to line everything up correctly now, let's go Remember I said I'm going to say this a lot, orthographic snap. And there you go. We can see, put it in place. Orthographic snap. There you go. And we can see where we're at. So are we in the right place? Well, we're not a million miles off, but there's a bit of work to do with some of these. So for example, this needs to come up. And I'm just using the move tool and I'm just moving bits and bobs around now. Time to do the fingers perhaps. So how do we do the fingers? You can do a cylinder. It's really up to you what basic shapes we use. It really doesn't matter. It's just about getting ourselves one of everything in there. So we'll copy that. Back up to me. You should be very familiar. By the end of this, you should be very familiar with doing this kind of thing. Scale it down. That's one finger. Move it over like so. Move it in place. Duplicate it. Rotate it. You see why I leave the selection on, the object selection, because it's very easy to see what you're working on. Duplicate it again. And rotate it around. And this is our thumb. Bring him down. Remember, with a thumb, there's one joint less than a finger, so we don't need those 3 joints that we get in a finger. Move it around and down. And there we go. One thing I do want to do is make sure that the parts intersect, because when we merge it, then it'll be much better if everything is intersecting. I'm just shaping the things that I know are a certain shape. So for example, the foot, I'll just bring that down to the kind of shape that I'd want it to be. I'm going to use smooth on there at the back and on the toes as well. I'm going to use smooth there, move and smooth, and then I'm going to line everything up again, just double check. So no, it's not quite lined up, is it? So now we'll go back to our move, big brush, and let's do some big sweeping moves now. And you'll see everything's dropping into place quite nicely now. Cool, so we've got one of everything. There's one more thing that I want to add, and that's the eyeball. So this is a very important part. So we're going to add it. You know how to do this already. So I'm just going to add a sphere. Whoops, sphere. Validate. It's going to change the color. And I'm going to pick another material. I wanted a yellowy kind of eye. Paint all, maybe a bit lighter than that. Yeah, that will do for now. Scale it down. Now our eyes aren't spheres, they're actually ovals. So we're going to have to, you could just use this gizmo like so, and you could scale it up like so, but we probably will want to move it around a little bit as well. So let's get it in place first of all. The reason we put an eye in, or the eyes, is because when you're sculpting things like eyelids, you're much better to be sculpting over the top of an eye rather than just doing it in space. So always put something like an eye and teeth in, because then you can see that you're sculpting around an actual object. The teeth, we will just use a torus. So there we go. So that one's absolutely fine. And I've just mentioned the teeth, so I might as well do it, and then everything's done then. So just find the torus, bring it in. You should be, by this time now, you should be super comfortable with this. So validated, remember what that means, scale it down, and pop it in place. And that's a set of teeth to work with. Or will be the teeth later on. You can see there they're round like a set of teeth would be on the upper jaw. So that's enough. I can scale it that way to make them a bit flatter, and that'll give us something like what we've got. So that's it now. We've got one of everything. Quite happy with that. That eye actually needs to be out like this. And we will bring this up more in a moment, and you'll see what I mean once I get to that. So there you go, that's phase one done. We've got one of everything. So you block it out like that, and then you go through and you merge the relevant parts together. So we've got this one, which is the head, and this is why I didn't name everything. And we've got an ear down here. So with the ear, what we want to do is merge it with the head. So, which is there. So you've got ear and head. So you down here you go multi-selection, and the ones that you've just selected, so that one and that one, you just merge them together. And we're going to use this here, which is merge meshes. So hit merge meshes, and now you've got at the bottom here, you've got one. Now we can name that now because we are going to use that as the head. So just name it head. That's that one done. You can work on it a little bit now, and the big thing that you want to say is, well, why haven't we only got half of it? Well, let's not have half of it. Let's sort that out. So to mirror it across, we go up here to symmetry. You've got mirror here, and you're going to be on X here for the direction because it's across the X axis, and you're just gonna you can hit flip here if you want it to come a different way, but we'll leave it off for now and see what happens. So mirror. Yes, and nothing's happened. So why is nothing happened? It's because we didn't use the right one. So that's where that would be pertinent. So you just say yes to that, and we mirrored the feet. So straight away you saw the mistake I just made. I wasn't actually on the head. So oh, hang on. Now we've got another problem. So if this is something that's becoming an issue for you, what you need to do is go back and do our video on mirror and symmetry in Nomad. I'll link it up the top here. And what basically is happening here is we'll put Gizmo Edit on, and we'll also do show 3D plane. And what that means is now we can see the plane of where our model is. It says that we're using world axis, but the plane isn't in the middle. So we could go local and put it in the middle, but world, like moving the gizmo like that means you're right in the center, and obviously this entire model is going to be done this way. So let's go snap view, orthographic, and let's just make sure that that mirror is exactly it has to be absolutely bang on in the middle. So just do it again, show 3D plane, definitely on x-axis, definitely on the head, remember this one. Don't be on the like I did, don't be on the foot. Make sure the plane is bang in the center. Mirror. And obviously flip it and mirror it correctly. And it's a bit of a faff. It can be, if you're not quite set correctly, you must learn those things, because one of the most important parts of what we're going to do is be able to mirror across that axis. So if you can't get that right, you're going to struggle. Now, everything else apart from the eye and the tooth can be merged together. So we know that the eye and the tooth is this one, and this one, the box and the torus. So everything else above it can be merged now. So multi-select everything else. Merge them together with merge voxels. Oops. I keep clicking the wrong thing. I keep clicking too many. So multi-select them all and then merge them. And now you've got all of them is the entire body in one go. And then what we can do, we've still got the mirror plane here, so we want to make sure that that's absolutely spot on in the middle. You can, if you're not sure, you can just snap to the view like that, and then make sure the flip direction is correct. If it's not, you're going to get problems. Now, I wasn't totally sure with the edit there that we were completely in the center, so I'm going to check it again. Make sure that I'm on orthographic. Make sure that it's snapped to the view. Here's a little recap of the symmetry, because it can get a bit confusing. I've just for a second turned off the reference image here. Now, on the symmetry tab at the top, where you've got reset direction, we know we're on X, and we're going to move this in the middle, but the quickest way is just to hit world center. When you've done that, you know it's going to mirror exactly over the center of the world. Hit mirror now, and presuming that you're on the right model, hit mirror, and it will mirror it completely. It looks exactly the same. We'll do the same for the body, just to make sure, and we don't need to do this now, but we just make absolutely sure we know we're in the center of the world because we hit world center, and we just hit mirror. And we just absolutely clear that we're now on the middle of the model. So let's go back to the main reference image. So this is almost the end of this video. This is what we call the blockout phase. The next phase will be sculpting it all into the character, but you've already done a lot of the work. You've already realized that your model has got one of everything. So you've got the head, you've got the eyes, you've got the body, you've got the ears, you've got literally everything you need to go ahead and now make the character. So the next phase, and in the next video, what we'll cover off is how we then sculpt that up to look like our character. And we'll end that video with the painting. So I hope you've enjoyed this section. It gets a lot easier the more you practice this. So please go over and over again until you're really comfortable with those basics. If you're enjoying this kind of content, then give it a thumbs up for us. It does help us get our work in front of new artists and be able to share it with people who are just joining us to learn this kind of thing. Subscribe to the channel, and if you hit the notification bell, we can obviously let you know when we upload our content, which is at the moment every Wednesday and every Friday. Thanks for joining us, and see you on the next video.